I think social media is probably a waste of time to evangelize.
It can be, Dan. It really can be a
I
waste
know,
of time.
I know. I don't actually believe that. Um, you're right. It can be a waste of time. And here is what we mean. Right now, more people than ever are using social media to evangelize, which is a good thing. So it's a good start if they're doing it well, of course. So let's say like anyone from teens and tweens to your local parish DRE have turned to social media to put things out there. So whether it's a parish event or whether it's a more intentional effort to evangelize and share the gospel, people are doing it, and that's a good thing. They're going to learn how, and they're going to get better as they go, and it doesn't matter how good you are. Go out and do it. But what we want to focus on today is that it's about more than just activity, and if we really want to be successful with it, if we want social media to be the right tool to help us be successful evangelists and bring people into relationship with Jesus Christ, then we need to be intentional in how we approach that. And we're going to talk about some things today that we think are going to help you really dial in your efforts. And some of the things I want to focus on are the idea that we start with the end in mind and what constitutes success. So actually, I'll start with that second one. What constitutes success? I think we should be very cautious about vanity metrics, and these are things like clicks, likes, engagements, that kind of thing, because they don't necessarily get us what we want. So, for instance, let's say you ran an Instagram account and you had 100,000 followers. What's the goal? Like, what does success look like for you? Well, for a secular person, success just looks like having 100,000 followers, because then you can get paid to promote things on Instagram, or you make money off of it. And you kind of participate in that advertising scheme that is Instagram. But if you're Catholic, you don't just want followers. You don't just want engagement. You want people to love God. Ideally, you want people who aren't Catholic to come into the Catholic Church and fall in love with Jesus Christ. And just getting them to click is not how you do that. So now most of us aren't going to have Instagram accounts with 100,000 followers, but all of us can use social media to engage in meaningful relationships and in meaningful conversations with people. And so that's our metric for success. And that's why we need to think with the end in mind. The end goal is people coming into relationship with Jesus Christ in the church, period. And I think at the end of the day, nothing else. Now you might have some niche job where you're just trying to raise awareness about an event. Okay. But in the big picture, everything we do needs to be connected to that larger goal of evangelization. That is why the church exists. So, Justin, how do we do that?
Well, Dan, one thing I want to mention, because you're so right about those vanity metrics. If you're using social media, you need to know what your metrics actually mean. And you also need to portray that accurately to your stakeholders. For example, your supervisors or whatnot. 'Cause you can say, oh yeah, we had 1,000 views of that video. Do you know what counts as a view on Facebook? 3 seconds. That's someone,
Yeah.
maybe even accidentally, just stopping on your video for a few seconds and moving on.
Yeah.
Then you'll go to your podcast and be like, oh, but I put it on my podcast, only had this many downloads. Yeah, but a download is much more likely to be listened to. So I do agree, social media can be super helpful to what we're doing, but you're right. You have to think about the end in mind. And I've heard a quote about leadership that I always keep coming back to. A leader's job is to define reality. So with our social media, we need to look at all the metrics, get a healthy picture of what's really going on, and not just like you're saying with vanity metrics, pat ourselves on the back with our likes. If it's not leading to anybody getting closer to Jesus, if we can't actually taste and see that happening, then what's the point of it all besides making ourselves feel good?
Right. It's not doing anything. I was happy, really, really happy at the beginning of the pandemic when a bunch of people started doing stuff on social media.
Mm-hmm.
But when I see stuff on there now, I say especially Instagram, because Instagram's so interesting because it's image heavy, and so it's either image or video heavy, not text heavy, and it's a little harder to be like provocative, which is a good thing. But the challenge there is, how do you engage people, or what do you engage people with? And I think people are confused about their audience. It looks like all the Catholics who go out there want to talk to other Catholics. And
Yep.
it's like, let me tell
Yep.
you about my prayer life or my favorite saint. And for the most part, I don't think that's the right
We
rate
don't
to
need,
reach
yeah.
non-Catholics. And the reason I say this, not because those things aren't important, not because I don't want them to love the saints and pray the rosary, but
Mm-hmm.
that's the advanced step. And they don't trust us.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to build trust. So like we should design social media interaction that builds trust and then fosters a deeper relationship, not just kind of like, here's like from the outside, well, a lot of things Catholics do look weird. And
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. That's not a problem. Like that's just the way most culture is. You look at a culture from the outside and you're like, well, why on earth do they do that? Our job is to invite them in and be curious about the culture.
Yes. And folks, we're going to get to a couple of frameworks we have that can really help you in the way you think about social media. But I just want to mention a really big thing that I think can be an issue on social media is a lot of us are trying to do the same thing, and it's not very helpful. So, for example, there are many pages where people can find reflections, okay? Maybe a funny meme. There are experts in that area. But what a parish can do that those pages can't is something our guest Edmund Mitchell talked about a few episodes back, that he's done really well with. His YouTube channel has grown to over 1,000 followers. He's just covering people in his local area. Those pages, those big pages that do the pretty reflections and videos, they can't do niche.
Yeah.
For example, I have a friend that I saw, he works at a cathedral. Part of his role is young adult ministry. He started a podcast just for the young adults at that cathedral. He can do interviews that people are going to be looking for in his niche market, right? That they can't find anywhere else. So I think a key to good social media, especially for parishes, is think local and don't try to be what everyone else is on social media. Do what only you can do on social media.
Yeah, which is hard because there's a part of us that wants to say, okay, who's successful and let me do what they do. And that doesn't mean that we perfectly emulate them. But one of the things they're doing is what they're good at and what makes them unique. And so if we do what makes us unique, like everybody's interesting enough to attract attention. If you don't try too hard and just they're like, okay, this is me. It's like, okay, here's a guy with an MBA and a doctorate. And I hope we don't try too hard. And I hope that people find that interesting enough to say, like, okay, let me give them a listen. Now, as you said, we've got frameworks. So we actually think that the right approach to social media can be found in two key frameworks from our book, Go Make Disciples. And that is the Discipleship Funnel and Flock Experience.
Yes. So, folks, I'm going to show us the Discipleship Funnel. If you're watching on YouTube, great. Or if you have our book, great. This is the Discipleship Funnel. But basically, it presents discipleship as a funnel. We try to title these things very simply, folks. You can pick it up and understand it. It's a pretty cool funnel, by the way. Our illustrator did an awesome job. So the first layer here is you have to cast a wide net through major outreaches, right? So, in the physical setting, that would be parish festival, a big speaker coming to town, maybe your parish mission. And then you want to use those events not just to leave people feeling good, but have specific action items, call to actions to invite them into relationship, fellowship groups, different studies or programs they can do, or just, like friendships, right? Just genuine, authentic friendships, help people connect. And then lastly, as those relationships deepen, it should be leading towards discipleship. Maybe that is meeting one-on-one for coffee every so often, but maybe it's probably more likely just sharing life with them and living life with them and opening up with them. Those are the three layers. And I think social media we can glean a lot for social media from this, Dan. So you start us off here. How does this teach us about social media?
Yeah. So there's two approaches you could take here. One is to say, I'm going to use social media to foster in-person engagement or to foster some kind of in-person interaction. So for the folks who are listening and don't get the benefit of seeing this online right now, you've got three steps here. So the first one, it's the widest part of the funnel. Justin he was right. This is, as far as funnels go, this is a nice funnel. I don't know how far that is, but at the very top where it's widest, that's what we call casting a wide net. That's your outreach. Those are the big events that you want lots of people to get involved with and come to see. So your parish mission, or maybe it's an online retreat, maybe it's an online conference. You could say, if you looked at the huge Theology of the Body conference that was put on last year during the height of the pandemic, that would be a great example of this. And they followed the same approach, because what they did is they created this free conference and a free Facebook group, and they pumped this hard. I mean, there's advertising all over the place, and the speakers were world class. And then they got our contact information and they got us in a Facebook group so that they had us where they wanted us, and they could communicate with us when they wanted to, so that we knew what they were like. I don't want to, like, I'm fine with the way they did this. It was not at all cutthroat. It wasn't disingenuous, but they were being intentional about forming relationships so that they could continue to have interactions with us, some of which would build an income for them, which is fine. That's like, I'm okay. They're doing a valid service. So you can try to get people to something in person, or you can just maintain a strictly digital relationship. And so forms of social media you could use for that would be some kind of like a fireside chat with the pastor, even though, I mean, it's like an old sounding thing, but it's still a thing. You could do a town hall. You can have a parish specific podcast. You can even have a demographic specific podcast. If I were a pastor, I would make a podcast where it was my homily plus I did my homily and then more, like all the things that I wanted to say in my homily, but I knew it shouldn't go more than 7 minutes or 12 minutes.
Oh, people would listen to that. People
Oh
would
yeah,
love
absolutely.
that.
Yeah. Like the people
And every
who
pastor can do that. Every pastor.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if you really you love what your pastor has to say, tell him like, hey, you know what? I know you've always got more to say. Make a podcast, because then they get to practice their homily before they deliver it to the parish. Of course, they don't publish that. They don't launch it until after Sunday, so people still come to mass. But then they get to hear the rest of your ideas on that homily. So that's outreach. That's a kind of like casting a wide net and forming some kind of contact. But then you always need to take the next step. And here's, I think, where people are failing in the biggest ways, because they're comfortable having a lot of touches. So they like those vanity metrics. That's the big net. That's the wide net. That's the outreach. It's just getting your face in front of people. And social media is great at this, especially if you put money behind it. The next step, though, is finding a way to have a relationship with people. And it really means that you collect some kind of contact information from them. So whether you invite them into an email system, or you have a private social media group for them. Like, I think every parish should have a private social media group where you have parish specific discussions on there. Whether cool. Whether that's LinkedIn or Facebook, or I mean, you could do something interesting with Clubhouse. Instagram would be a little interesting, but you could still do that privately, because Facebook or Instagram allows private accounts, and then that gives you a way to communicate with just those people.
Yeah. So just a note briefly about platforms. It's easy to run and say, I need an Instagram account. I need a TikTok. Hold up. You always want to know the demographics on your social media platform. So, for example, in a lot of the work I do for marriage ministry, all we have right now is Facebook. I'm okay with that. But in 5 years, I won't be, because I know the grand, the majority of my target market is on Facebook still. I want to stick to that. Now, if I was a youth minister, I need to know what's the latest one they're using, and I need to be on that. So, where I think like even that yellow section there, Dan, outreach, like we need to think about where we're doing the fishing, because we got to make sure our fish are biting in the lake we're fishing in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I just want to point out that the way the video looks right now, for those of you who are listening, you'll just have to check out the YouTube video. Our clothes match the funnel.
Whoa. That was not intentional.
No, definitely not.
Even my headphones. I put on green headphones right before we filmed.
There you go. Yeah.
That's crazy.
So that second stage in your social media approach needs to be establishing meaningful relationships. And that's probably going to take more effort, because relationships take more effort than just putting your name out there.
Yeah.
But this is where the battle is going to be won or lost. And if you think of successful businesses, that like it's a great play on words, conversion. Like, we both want conversion. Businesses want to convert you into customers. We want to convert people into people who love the Lord Jesus, or rather, Jesus wants to convert them
We
into.
are all salesmen for Jesus, folks.
Exactly. Yeah.
Whether we
And
want to
so,
admit it or not. That's what we do.
yeah. They took that word from us, not the other way around.
Evangelist. I know, it's like the word
Yep.
to use in business now.
Oh yeah, no, it's a big thing. Like, I'm a tech evangelist. I'm a this or that evangelist. It's like, oh, okay. So, and then that last step is discipleship. And here's the tough part. Relationships and discipleship take an investment in time, and you have to invest in people. And so there's a couple ways you could do that. If you just really love the social media dynamic, and you like being on there, and there's something about like the working through a computer that's very helpful to you, and that's a reality for a lot of people. I don't want to downplay that. What you can do is, once you feel like you've got a relationship with people and they're willing to go deeper, do a couple things. You can create an even more unique private page or private group, so that you can spend more time with these people. And so I know somebody right now who is a Catholic mental health counselor, and this person has a Facebook group with a pretty large following, but then they made, or a page rather, they have their own their business as a Facebook page with a decent following, but then they created a challenge just for people who are married. And that group became an opportunity for people to really focus and have deep conversations about marriage, and about marriage from a Catholic psychological perspective. And so you could do that with anything. So you create some kind of online presence, and people are interacting with you, they're engaging with you, you've got your outreach, you've got your wide net, and then you start to realize some people want a relationship with you. And then what you do is you invite them into something deeper, and it's going to take more of your time, but that's going to be more fruitful, and people are going to what's going to lead them to Jesus, but only if we are willing to give of ourselves to them, and not just make more consumable content.
Yeah. Well, I like what you said earlier, Dan, about the delineation between, you can use this to just try to have a deeper relationship, or take people deeper in a virtual setting, but what I've primarily used social media for, I think most people probably use it for, is to pull people out of the virtual world into in-person interactions. Now that we're moving on from COVID in a lot of ways, it seems like we can get back to thinking that way. So I just want to tell two stories, because I've seen it work. And Dan, you were someone that encouraged me to really, think about using Facebook ads more. They're very easy to do, easiest thing in the world to target. If you just click that boost event or that boost button. Anyway, two examples of this working. One, we were in the area, we were doing a group based on the Ascension series, Surviving Divorce. It's for people that have been divorced or separated. It can be hard to find people that want to reach out for that. But if you run a Facebook ad, it can get in front of people's eyeballs for not a lot of money.
Yeah.
And we had someone join that was not local, saw it. And you think about Jesus leaving the 99 for the one. That's the opportunity we have in social media. We can go find that one. We can prayerfully create an ad, going after the people. And I remember praying on it, being like, Lord, help me. I'm going to try this. I'm going to spend a little money on this. And it brought that person into interaction with the church, and they attended. Yeah. One more example was this person who had been following a page, liking things, and I know, that you've mentioned to me before, Dan, it takes like 6 months of someone following you before they're going to like really interact with you. They got to trust you in that virtual sense.
Yeah.
Well, finally, this person signs up for this online study. He only comes to 1 or 2 of the 8 sessions we were doing, virtual meetings. Well, finally, this past week, they signed up for an in-person event. And this relationship all started on Facebook. But now I'm going to meet this person in person and be able to introduce them to other people that are following Christ.
Yeah.
This has eternal consequences, folks. We cannot take the posts we make lightly, the things we do. Jesus can use every single bit of it. Crazy.
Yeah, indeed. So, and that 6-month relationship building piece, that's when someone transitions from, okay, you've just made contact, that's part of your outreach, to they want a real relationship. And yeah, that does take time, because relationships take time. Like, people, you don't just walk up to somebody and say, hey, I'd like to be your friend. That, like, I mean, maybe that works when you're in kindergarten or something. And great, I'm glad
I
it does.
still do that, Dan.
I need you to teach me how to do that sometime. But like, it's because a friend, like being a friend, means something, and there's components of that, like trust and knowledge of the other person, that only comes with time, and you just can't rush that. And
Yeah.
so it's okay if, like, people aren't, if they don't immediately rush into those relationships to be a more active disciple. But like, we just put ourselves out there, and I mean, the invitation is not ours, it's Jesus's. We're relaying the invitation that came from him. And so if we're faithful in that, and we proclaim his gospel, not our own, that he died and rose from the dead to forgive our sins and restore us to relationship with the Father, I'm positive that we will bring people into relationship with him, or rather, he will do that through us.
Yes. Now, brief sidebar before we go to the next framework. One thing about building trust. Okay, when you think about all this stuff from a marketing perspective or social media perspective, just think of think about relationships you've had in your own life. You want to be friends with people that are authentic and consistent in who they are, right? Because then you can trust them. So if you have a social media presence, I really encourage you to identify 3 to 5 core values of the persona that page or whatever needs to have, and be very faithful to that. Because people will follow you if you're consistent, and they see, oh, this is a common way they speak. This is how companies even think about it too. But if you're out there and one day you're posting something really nice, and the next day you're condemning people, then the next day you're trying to do this and that, people are going to say, I don't want to follow this thing anymore. I don't know what it's going to do every day. So just be consistent, and then you can build the trust.
Yeah. And remember, for the most part, people go on social media to have fun.
That is very true too. They don't want to leave feeling bad about themselves.
Yeah. And so,
they
like,
do that enough to themselves, reviewing other people's posts.
Yeah, as challenging as it is, like, engaging with you needs to be enjoyable. Now, you might think, well, they need to hear the truth. Yes, but when they trust you, and when you're friends with them, and when you have a real relationship, and when they ask you a question and they're willing to listen to your answer, that's when you tell them the truth. Like, doctors don't go down the street shouting advice to people. They wait for you to come to them.
Amen, brother. That's such a great lesson, because if their first interaction with your Facebook page is you talking bad about some other group, or coming off in a very just, I don't know, non-approachable way, they're probably never going to follow you again. Yeah. And don't think about Facebook as the place where you bear everything. Like you said, that's the place where you're just casting the line out to build to it's really more at the outreach level. Really, the relationship only happens through, like you said, if you're doing it online, maybe through private groups and things like that, or it's in person. So just be careful out there on Facebook. It can be great, but it can also be treacherous and damaging to the brand of your parish or ministry if you put the wrong vibes out there. Yeah, really can be.
Indeed. So let's throw our next framework up there, which is flock experience. And this really goes hand in hand with the discipleship funnel. And we have, for those of you who are listening, this is arranged in a pyramid format. And I will, Justin, tell us about the flock experience. And this is, like, if the funnel's great, this one's even better. You should just watch this YouTube episode just so you can see the flock experience.
Yes, and Dan and I just got better cameras, so you can really see our beautiful faces as we talk about the flock. Yeah. So, or you can cover that part with like a different tab from your browser, so you just see the flock experience. Anyway, the flock experience, it's very much based on the business world customer experience, CX. So we've called this FX. And 3 simple steps again. What we all need to do in ministry is we're designing those, as we're creating those ways we're going to reach out to people and draw them closer to Jesus. First step is lock on to the lost sheep. Who exactly are you trying to reach for Jesus? If you say everybody, you're already answering the question incorrectly, because any ministry that's trying to be there all things to everybody, it's probably not going to work out very well. Even parishes have their, regional locales they have to look
Yeah,
after.
yeah.
And those
Mhm.
people are different than the people 3 hours away. You have to. So anyway, lock onto who you want to reach, know them really well. Then second, build the right experience to get them. Like we said earlier, should I be on Instagram? Should I be on Facebook? Should I be on both? Depends on your sheep and what they're using. Then third, most importantly, once you've initiated relationship, maintain it the right way, the right types of experiences, the right opportunities. Um, Really, it's that ABC: lock onto the lost sheep, build the right experience to draw them in and help them experience the church and our Lord, and then maintain a relationship with them in a way that makes sense. So, Dan, your thoughts on how FX relates to SM, social media?
So the first one is super clear. Lock on to lost sheep. That when we're creating a post, we need to think who are we trying to engage with? Where, like, when can we reach them? Where can we reach them? What are they going to engage with? And then, of course, why? Like, and we need to remember our why. We want these people to fall in love with Jesus, or if they're already in love with Jesus, we want them to be willing to serve Him more. And even there, that helps you understand. Like, if your question is why, you want to reach them, and that, like, the answer to that question is, we want to invite people who aren't Catholic into a relationship with the Lord. Well, you already know that your active parishioners are not your target audience, or vice versa, and that's okay. But it just means you make ads, or you make social media posts that are going to foster engagement with the type of people you want to do that for.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
with building the right experience, again, thinking that same thing. So whether you're trying to get them to an in-person event, or whether you're thinking about just the experience of engaging with you, that's part of that persona. Like, who are you? How do you present yourself so that people know, okay, this parish or this campus ministry or this, charity, whatever it is, this is who they are. This is what's important to them, and I can see that in the way they present themselves online. And then the last part, which is maintaining a relationship. Again, clear overlap here with the discipleship funnel. Be consistent enough, especially in how you present yourself, and communicating with that target flock in a purposeful way, so that people begin to have an anticipation or an expectation of your presence online, and they look forward to seeing your posts, and they look forward to engaging with you, and maybe they look forward to engaging with you in real life. And if you think, okay, what does this look like in the business world for a customer experience? Maintaining that relationship, it means people continue to buy from you, and you continue to give them a valuable experience, and people identify with their favorite brands. Like, think about how much free advertising we give people by putting their stickers on our cars and our laptops and our water bottles, because we just want people to know, hey, I'm associated with this outdoor clothes company, or I'm associated with this water bottle company, or with this car company, or with this computer company. And part of that is that those companies have found a way to maintain that relationship. And I mean, that's not the only thing we're talking about here, but like, how easy is it for people to maintain a relationship with us? And do we, is there some kind of, is there a virtual experience that we can give them that allows them to do that? And I think there is. I mean, it could be, nothing's coming to mind right now. And I don't want to say anything that is, rather, the things that are coming to mind are outdated. And so I don't want to date myself by saying them. But I mean, well, actually, no, I'll take that back. You can create geographically isolated filters on certain social media accounts or certain social media platforms. And so you can create a special experience for certain accounts. So if people are on your parish property, they get access to this special way of taking pictures, or special way of superimposing a graphic image over their face. And that's only if they're at your parish, or at your school, or at your event. And I mean, it gives somebody a unique experience of interacting with you that they can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, it's kind of cool I mean, I never thought about that before, Dan, but the applications of like stuff we see um, theme parks doing, with these like things they can do virtually
Yeah.
using their phone
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
park. I
Yep.
mean, why can't we do that at the church? Give people another reason to come And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
once they're on campus, oh, wow, there's new signage pointing them to this, this group that they can join, or this great retreat. Um, I mean, we have to like really break down our concept of like, this is how the church does things. We have to start thinking about things in this way, because people out there, especially people away from the church, are used to that kind of interaction with every organization they get involved in, whether it be a charity, whether it be their local nonprofit, even government agencies, and also, of course, businesses. So then if they come to the church and they feel like it's the 1980s still, they're going to think this place isn't relevant to me.
Yeah.
And that's not compromising what the church teaches. No, of course not. But what we do say we need to do is relate and reach out to people with the same message that's ancient, ever new. But we need to reach out to people in ways that they're going to be receptive to and used to, or
Yeah.
else we're just going, the bridge will get wider.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's the flock is out there. Like, everybody's out there. There are more people on social media that you could connect with in your area, period, just in your zip code, than you have time for. And so ask yourself, how are you spending your time? And are you spending it in the most valuable way, especially on social media, especially if you're evangelizing on social media? And are you developing meaningful relationships with people that will lead them into an authentic relationship with you and Jesus Christ? And if not, it might be time to pick up our book and read about these things. So no,
Yes.
not to do the shameless sales pitch, because we talk about all the things that we cover in the book in this podcast. But if you're curious about how you can do this better, our book would be a great place to start. Or you can just go back and listen to any of the early episodes where we cover this stuff in more detail.
Yes, absolutely. Maybe as we're wrapping up this conversation, Dan, I want to bring us back to something you said way at the beginning. It's about your metrics, beginning with the end in mind.
Yeah.
I think for most places, most parishes, most local ministries, we need to just adjust our goals. So, locking onto the lost sheep, say that, just because it's an easy example, say you're a youth minister. How many youth are in your parish? Let's say it's there's 400 young people, right, in your target age range. Okay, so your social media engagement, of course, following all diocesan safe environment rules and all that good stuff, within those guidelines, as you launch this, like what does success look like? And maybe you start like a series of videos online or a podcast or whatever. When you think about your downloads goal, don't be disappointed if it's not 600 downloads. Your target market was only 400. But then locking on the lost sheep, you're going to get better at looking for them. It's like a fisherman that goes out looking for a certain type of fish, and he keeps going until he starts to find more and more of them. He's going to get better over time. So same for us. I really think the key to good social media for the vast majority of the church, Dan, like I'm talking like 98% of the church, is niche. Who are you called to go after?
Yeah.
Who are you called to serve? And be faithful to that.
Right. Yeah. We're not all going to be these really good looking priests on YouTube and
Are really
and
good
all
looking
this.
podcasters.
Right.
Clearly, we're not going to all be that. Clearly.
Right. Yeah. But like you said, what's your niche, and fill it well, and don't be ashamed of that.
That's right. Amen, Dan.
Well, folks, thanks so much. And I mentioned a couple of moments ago that in our book, we talk about a lot more of these. That book is Go Make Disciples. It's available on Amazon for only $12.99. That's not bad. And it's even less on Kindle. So if you are a Kindle type person, then go check it out. If you're a real print type person, Amazon's actually really cool. We publish through Amazon. So they print that book when you buy it, which is amazing. So that means that there's no waste. There's not like a stack of books sitting around somewhere waiting for people to like just buy them. They only make them when you want them. So if you want one, they will make one for you.
Absolutely. So, we thank you all for listening. We thank all our listeners. We just wrapped up our best month yet, April 2021, most downloads we've had. It's been growing. we really appreciate it. If you're finding this podcast helpful to you in your ministry, please share it with others. We're trying to do this as a service to the church to help Mother Church be more effective in evangelization. So please share it. And thank you for following us and giving us your time.
Indeed. God bless you, folks. Look forward to the next one. Bye.